Hello everyone, this is Brad Wistens, and this video is going to be a follow-up to the Odyssey by Bill episode that I published a couple days ago. In that video, I launched a 1.3 ton craft that took Bill to Minmus and back, and I had learned previously that the mass requirement to launch a staged Minmus mission is pretty much equivalent to doing a single stage to Kerbin Orbit mission. So I adapted the craft I used in that video and turned it into a single stage Kerbin Orbiter. While I was able to reduce the part count and complexity by getting rid of the upper stage that goes to Minmus, getting all the mass to orbit does require slightly more fuel, and this came in a little bit heavier at a mass of 1,390 kilograms. The ascent profile has more or less remained the same. I'm going to pick up as much speed at low altitude and try to reach around 750 meters per second before climbing and then starting the spark engine. I've occluded all the parts except for the wing and the air intake, which means this has next to zero drag. As a result, I can pick up as much speed as I want at low altitude. The little bit of angle on the wings makes me climb naturally without any angle of attack on the fairing, which would increase drag. Once I reach space, I inject into a low as an orbit of Kerbin as possible. I want to have as much delta V remaining as possible because for the descent, the low drag of this means it's going to take a very long time to slow down. And the more delta V I have, the lower I can put my periapsis, and the faster I can slow down. In orbit, I have a little over 3.5 kilograms of fuel remaining. I'm going to use the rest of this to inject back into a suborbital trajectory and start our descent. To reduce part count and complexity, I've skipped the landing gear. This is part of how I was able to get the part count all the way down to 10. As a result, I'm going to go for a splashdown landing. I'm going to fly past the Kerbal Space Center and then turn around so I can coast back to the shore while we're braking. To close this off, I want to respond to some questions that I got about the 1.3 ton to Minmus mission, and I'm sure I'll get about this mission as well. And that is, what can be done to decrease the mass of these launches further? The most obvious thing to do is just to decrease the margins and launch with a little bit less fuel. I wouldn't discourage anyone from attempting this, but it's not really what interests me. What interests me is coming up with some kind of qualitatively different approach. Two examples of this that I thought of for the Minmus mission would be coming up with a way to get rid of the need for the radiator for re-entry and leaving the space chair in elliptical Kerbin orbit instead of capturing it in orbit of Minmus. This minimalist SSTO is perhaps even more interesting because I actually can't think of a path towards a qualitatively better approach. As far as I can tell, every part remaining in this craft is absolutely necessary to reach orbit. So my challenge to all of you is to try to think of something I missed. Is there some way to further lower the mass of a manned SSTO and Kerbal Space Program other than just reducing the fuel margins by a little bit?